You are standing at the edge of a camp. It is roughly 200,000 years ago, somewhere in East Africa. You have just finished eating. In your hand is a bone, scraped clean, useless to you. Now, so you do what every human being does. You toss it over your shoulder. It lands in the grass. You do not think about it again. You have not made trash. You have not polluted. You have simply returned a bone to a landscape that will digest it completely. But 200,000 years from now, an archaeologist will kneel in the dirt, exactly where that bone landed, brush away the soil, and call it evidence. You did not throw anything away, because for you, the word away does not exist. And yet that bone and everything like it is the quiet beginning of one of the strangest inventions in human history. So how did humans invent trash? The answer is not a single moment. It is a slow transformation in what objects mean, stretching from the Paleolithic to a hill. Rome to a magazine page in 1955. And it starts with a fact that almost nobody considers. For most of human existence, trash was physically impossible. Let's start with what people actually threw out before civilization, because the answer is almost nothing. Hunter-gatherers lived in a world of extreme scarcity. Every object had value. A broken tool became a scraper. A worn-out hide became cordage. Food waste was eaten by dogs, birds, or insects. What remained was bone, shell, and ash, and even those were ground into tools or spread on soil. There was no surplus, so there was no waste. The very category of garbages did not exist in the human mind. You cannot throw something away if everything has a next use. And when ancient people did leave piles behind, they were not trash in our sense. They were records. Along the coasts of Denmark, the Erdeb LLE culture around 7,000 years ago left behind enormous mounds of oyster and clam shells, called shell middens. Some are meters deep. To us, they look like dumps. To an archaeologist, they are archives, precise layers, recording seasons, diets, and trade. The closest thing our ancestors had to a landfill was a library. Think about what that means. For roughly 95% of our species' existence, the things humans discarded were few, local, and digestible. The earth could absorb everything we rejected. Trash was not a problem, because trash as a concept had not been invented yet. But then humans stopped moving, and the moment you settle down, your relationship with your own refuse changes forever. When you are nomadic, you walk away from your waste. When you are settled, your waste stays with you. It piles up. It smells. It breeds rats and disease. The first cities discovered this the hard way. By the time of Rome, around the 1st century AD, a city of 1 million people was producing waste on a scale the planet had never seen, and Rome's answer to it still exists. In the south of the city stands Monte Testaccio, an artificial hill roughly 35 meters high, covering about 20,000 square meters. It is not made of earth. It is made of broken pottery, an estimated 25 million amphorae, the olive oil shipping containers of the ancient world, stacked shard upon shard for centuries. It is one of the first true landfills in human history, a monument built entirely out of things people threw away. But here's the thing about Monte Testaccio that matters. The Romans did not see those amphorae as garbage in the modern sense. Their disposal was organized, systematic, almost industrial. The hill was engineered. Lime was sprinkled on the shards to control the smell of rancid oil. This was waste management, and waste management only exists when waste has become a problem. Rome proved that at a certain scale, a society produces more refuse than the landscape can digest. The invention of the city was, quietly, the invention of the dump. And still, for the next 1,800 years, ordinary objects were too precious to waste. Repair was the default. The 5,300-year-old Iceman TZ, found in the Alps in 1991, carried clothing and tools that had been repaired, again and again, patched, resharpened, rebound. His gear was valuable. Throwing it away would have been unthinkable. For most of human history, that was the relationship between people and things. You kept them, you fixed them, you passed them down. So what broke that relationship? Two things: machines and the idea that objects should die. The Industrial Revolution made objects cheap. For the first time in history, it became easier to buy a new one than to fix the old one. Paper bags replaced cloth sacks. Tin cans replaced jars. And cheap objects multiplied faster than cities could absorb them. And once waste piled up, it became a killer. In 1842, Edwin Chadwick published his report on the sanitary condition of Britain's working population, linking piles of urban refuse directly to cholera and typhus. Cleaning up trash was not a courtesy. It was public health. Within decades, cities created organized garbage collection. And with collection came the final psychological shift. Once someone else hauls your refuse away, you stop seeing where it goes. The invention of the garbage truck was the invention of invisibility. Then, in 1907, a chemist named Leo Baekeland created Bakelite, the first fully synthetic plastic. Humans had invented a material that did not exist in nature, and nature crucially had no enzymes to break it down. Plastic was miraculous, light, durable, cheap. It saved lives in hospitals, lightened cars and planes, preserved food. During the Second World War, American plastic production roughly tripled, and when the war ended, the factories needed a peacetime market. The material that had won the war was redirected into the kitchen, the toy box, the trash. Durability, the very miracle of plastic, became its curse. A material designed to last forever was now being used for objects meant to last 5 minutes. But cheap materials alone did not create the throwaway society. That required a decision, a deliberate cultural project. In the 1920s, as American factories became extremely efficient, industrial designers like Brooks Stevens began arguing for what he later called planned obsolescence. The idea was simple and radical. Design products to fail or to look outdated, so people must buy again. Cars changed style every year. Appliances shifted color and shape. The object was no longer a tool for life. It was a subscription to the economy, and then the culture flipped completely. In August 1955, Life magazine published an article titled Throwaway Living. It showed a family tossing paper plates, plastic, cutlery, and disposable items into the air, like confetti. The article celebrated the end of household drudgery. No more washing dishes, no more mending. The future, it promised, was disposable. Within a single generation, throwing things away stopped being wasteful and became modern, clean, even glamorous. Trash was no longer an accident of consumption. It was the point of consumption. Think about what that means for the bone you tossed over your shoulder. At the beginning of this story, a bone dissolves in years. A shell lasts, but it is natural. A plastic bottle persists for centuries. When humans invented disposable culture, they also invented the first material the earth cannot digest. The scale is hard to hold in your head. In 2017, researchers Roland Geyer, Jenna Jambeck, and Kara Lavender Law published a study in Science Advances estimating that by 2015, humans had produced 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic. Of that, only 9% had been recycled, 12% incinerated. The rest, 79%, accumulated in landfills and the natural environment. Not away. There is no away. In 1997, a sailor named Charles Moore crossed the North Pacific Gyre and found himself sailing through a diffuse soup of floating plastic fragments that stretched across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Moore was not a scientist. He was a racing skipper delivering a catamaran home from Hawaii. He had stumbled into the center of our civilization's exhaust. Human refuse had assembled itself into a feature of the ocean, larger than most countries. And here is where the story lands somewhere strange. Geologists now argue that human trash has become part of the rock record. The Anthropocene Working Group, the scientific body examining whether we have entered a new geological epoch, points to technofossils, human-made objects that will persist for millions of years. Plastic layers, aluminum, concrete. Our landfills are not disappearing. They are becoming strata. 1 million years from now, the only thing standing between a future geologist and our entire civilization may be the things we threw away. So here is the answer. How did humans invent trash? They did it in layers. First, they settled down, and their waste stopped walking away with them. Then they built cities, and waste became a problem of scale. Then they industrialized, and objects became cheaper than repair. Then they designed things to die, and made replacement a habit. Then they celebrated disposal as progress, and invented a material nature cannot unmake. Tonight, you will throw something away. A wrapper, a receipt, a bottle. You will not think about the 200 5,000-year chain of shifts that made that gesture feel natural. You will not think about Monte Testaccio, or Tazi's patched coat, or the family in the Life magazine photograph. You will just let it go. And it will travel to a place you will never see. And it will wait there, longer than your city, longer than your country, longer perhaps than your species. Because here is the truth. No one says out loud, "A way is not a place. A way is a story we tell ourselves." And the earth keeps every receipt.